Managing appetite is crucial for weight management because what happens in any type of a weight loss journey is that when you start to eat less than your body is expecting, which is a typical description of a calorie deficit, there is potential for you to feel hungry. Now, where this gets a little bit tricky is that a lot of times in diet culture, people think that they have to feel completely starving or they're not going to lose weight or they're not dieting correctly. And I really like to, first of all, get the word dieting out of my vocabulary and out of my clients' vocabulary because we don't want you to feel starving. We don't want you to feel like you're suffering on any kind of a weight loss journey. But it is important to know that we want to eat real foods that make you feel full while you're on that weight loss journey. And that's one of the misconceptions that people don't often think that they're allowed to feel full and satisfied on their weight loss journey. But knowing that with a calorie deficit, there is a potential for hunger and fullness, this is where choosing the types of foods that you choose can really make or break your success with your weight loss journey. Often, when we refer to in literature or research, it's called the Western diet, but I would say in general language, we say the standard American diet, which is what most people are used to eating, especially in the United States of America. And it is also named the SAD diet. And it's the SAD diet because it doesn't really offer a lot of nutritional value. And we tend to have a lot of chronic diseases. We have high rates of diabetes, heart disease, and obesity that we're dealing with in the United States. So the standard American diet has really unfortunately become the norm, but really has become something that we need to get away from and back to eating a nutritious whole food based eating pattern. And so there are actually many, many ways to do that. And I loved chatting with my clients about how to do that. But what tends to characterize the traditional standard American diet is very highly processed foods. We probably got here way back into the Industrial Revolution when we started refining grains, when things like Wonder Bread came out. What we did with Wonder Bread is we stripped all of the grain from all of its nutrients. We took out the fiber and we took out the germ. And what we left was really a highly processed version of the grain that didn't have any of the nutrition. So we took out the protein and we took out the fiber when we processed these grains. And the protein and fiber are key nutrients for keeping us full and satisfied, number one, which are really important on a weight loss journey, but they're also really great for our digestive tract. And the protein is really good for building muscles. Unfortunately, when we had this industrial revolution, it led to some processing of foods that really didn't end up leaving us healthy in the long run. When we talk about the nutrition quality of accessible foods, I think it's really important to think about what are the things that we all tend to need and want when we're talking about choosing foods. And a lot of times I like to use breakfast as the example when I talk about the quality of our foods. When we are all busy, and this starts as early as kindergarten, when we're getting kids ready for school and we're running out the door, sitting down and having a highly nutritious breakfast is not always on the top of everybody's to-do list. So what ends up happening is food companies are meeting our needs in that way. And so they're giving us readily available fast food that we might be making in our home, or we might be stopping at fast food for breakfast. But often these readily available foods are highly processed and they end up being very refined and don't have a lot of nutritional quality. Some examples I'm thinking of are breakfast cereals have been marketed for decades as nutritious breakfast, but in reality, they're fairly highly processed food that don't really contain a balanced meal. So we've been trained from an early age that we can have a really fast meal that has been sold to us as possibly nutritious, but really is not balanced. It's all highly processed carbohydrate. It doesn't have much fiber. At least most of the cereal that most people choose doesn't have a lot of fiber in it, and very little bit of protein for keeping us full as well, and almost no fat. And a lot of that really came out of the low fat era of the 80s as well. The food companies trying to meet our fast-paced world needs, and that may be part of the standard American diet as well. But these are the types of foods that are often readily available: quick, easy, highly processed, don't have to do a lot of cooking, and we're out the door. There are actually tons of ways to get a fast, quick meal that can also be out the door that does contain nutrition. It doesn't tend to be the thing that we might have been raised to do or been aware of. And that's where I like to get those tips into with my clients on how to add protein and fiber to a fast meal or a fast breakfast. When the majority of our diet is highly processed foods, we tend to need to eat more of them to feel full, because when the food is highly processed, it tends to be stripped of its fiber or its protein, especially when we're talking about refined grains. If it's processed in other ways, sometimes it has added sugars or added salt or trans fats, all things that don't really serve a purpose in the body. We tend to eat more of them. And there's actually a really fascinating study that was sponsored by the National Institute of Health that showed when people ate the same amount of calories from highly processed foods, that they actually gained more weight. So we do see a problem in our standard American diet that people are gaining weight on highly processed foods, even when the calories are controlled.